Kawasa on the Silver Coast. I am in right in the center, about 10 minutes from Nazaré on the ocean. So great to have you here today. I am actually sitting in my dining room because we're having construction done at the office, and so I don't have internet. So welcome home. So nice to have you all here. We're going to give a couple more minutes before we get started and get everyone logging in. Hello again. Hi, welcome. All right, so from Florida, we've got the East Coast and the West Coast represented. That's great. And from Nigeria, welcome. Welcome. Nice to have you here. So we've had a lot of questions that people have been sending us as well via email and over chat. So I've got some of those gathered too. Nice to see you. Hello. Okay, so we've got Ohio here. I think I saw Missouri pop up for a moment when it came through as well. So welcome. Hey, Corey. Hi. Welcome from Atlanta. We're just going to give another minute or so for folks to get logged in, and then we'll get started. We're going to be live on our social media channels, and we're also going to be sending out to anyone that signed up through the webinar. You'll be able to get the recording after it's finished. So definitely, if you signed up, we'll have that recording. And then if you didn't sign up and you want to get that, please let us know, and we can send that out to you. Oh, great, Erin. That's fantastic. Yeah, Clyde, that's great. We're excited to be working with you as well. And because I'm at the house today and not in the office, you may hear our dogs in the background because they do get very excited when delivery people come by, and it's that time of the evening when that happens. So I apologize in advance. We have two fluffy Newfie Doodles, one that is 6 years old and one that is 6 months. And the 6 months old is up to a lot of mischief right now. So yes, just apologizing. Hey, Terrence, I will say hello to Dutch for sure. Oh, our dogs, we have the biggest, fluffiest dog. So Dutch is about 125 pounds. He's 6 years old, and he's a big, fluffy Newfie Doodle, so half Newfoundland, half Poodle. And then we have Aladdin, who is 6 months old. He's a new addition to the family, and he is 3/4 Newfoundland and 1/4 Poodle. He's huge already. He's already about 50 pounds. So, yep, we have a very busy household with our fuzzy boys. All right, perfect, Erin. No, we hope we can answer as many questions. And Mike, welcome. So I haven't had a chance to see you, but I'm kind of here saying hello. Great to connect with you again. And I'm so glad you're enjoying the Silver Coast. It's absolutely beautiful here. And we have had a gloriously gorgeous day today. Oh, you have an Aussie. Okay, perfect. No, we do have a lot of play dates with the dogs. We have a lot of folks that relocate with their dogs, and it's always great to have people stop by and introduce them to us at the office for sure. Our dogs come to the office every day. They have a work schedule. They're used to it. So, you know, it works out. They get a lot of socialization. All right, so I think we are about ready to get started. One thing I just want to let you know is if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments in the chat, and we will put as many questions up as possible. Fiona is here with me. She handles our social media and is on the other side of the computer navigating the questions and getting as many of them shared as possible. She's also our daughter, and we're thrilled that she's part of the Portugal the Place family. And if you've caught us on TikTok or seen us on social media, then you can thank Fiona for that, because she's definitely keeping us out there. So we're just going to run through as many questions as you have. Please bring them on. There really isn't anything we shouldn't or couldn't go over. So really hoping to dig into anything that's on the top of your mind. And with that being said, we are really excited to be here. My name is Colleen, and I'm with Portugal the Place. I'm one of the co-founders. My husband Clyde and I started Portugal the Place about 4 years ago. Really, after we relocated to Portugal, we realized that there were some areas here that just were not covered by support. And what we found is that the cities in Portugal don't have like chambers of commerces or links on their websites for relocation information. It's a very different culture in the way they respond and get back to you as far as getting you information. And of course, language barriers make that even more challenging. So we went ahead and started this service to help people navigate the process. And we're really proud of the fact that we've helped over 2,000 people relocate to Portugal in the last years. And it's been an amazing journey. So here we are. We have lots of experience with all types of folks, and we are ready to dig in and start answering your questions. So Tristan is talking about having an American Staffordshire Terrier, and can you bring her to Portugal? That is definitely a good question to ask because there are breed restrictions. They will have different requirements for your terrier. You'll have requirements for veterinary. All dogs have to have a cleared vet check and have a rabies certification. All that is required for all animals. And then with the breeds that they consider dangerous breeds, they're going to need to get additional reports, additional information. They're going to be handled by the airline differently, and then it's on an approval basis. So it's definitely one that you want to work with a professional like a pet relocation company to navigate it and make sure that all the paperwork's in order before you try to transport them with the airlines, because they can be more easily refused. And that's why the information seems like a gray area, is because some of the animals, they think it's cleared, and then when you get to the airport, if one of the pieces of paperwork isn't correct, they can refuse the animal at the last minute. So in this case, with any of these breeds that have been flagged, I would really highly recommend working with a pet relocation company and make sure it's all taken care of before you start the move. And yes, we do handle everything. We help clients. We have a partner that does the fiscal responsibility for the NEEF, the attorney's firm, that we can navigate and get you all set up. And then we open the bank account as part of our service. So we can open remote bank accounts or help you when you're here in person. And then we handle everything else. We can handle everything from helping you find your schools to helping advise you with insurance, purchasing a car, all the home relocation parts of support from your utilities to service providers, everything you need to have a soft landing when you arrive. And what are some of the most walkable cities? Okay, this is a great question. And I love answering this because there are so many great options in Portugal. So I'm going to kind of set aside the cities like Lisbon and Porto, which are so well known for their public transportation, the fact that they have a very robust set of trains, trams, buses, it's just very walkable and really great, vibrant neighborhoods. But beyond that, there are so many opportunities to live in Portugal and be able to shop and walk without a car. So for example, you could live in Coimbra. Coimbra is a fantastic city that's connected with the train system. You can have the high-speed train that goes right into Lisboa, or you can go on up to Porto. And you can live in the city very comfortably in the neighborhoods, getting all the things you need, walkable, and being able to navigate without having to go in the old town, because that's very steep. But if you want to live your day-to-day life with all the resources you need, you can do that in a very level, easy area for walking. Another city that doesn't get mentioned often as much as maybe other places is the city of Leiria. Leiria is the capital of the Leiria district, and it lies about an hour and 30 minutes north of Lisbon. And it is a beautiful city. It's not a tourist town. It's not a city that really jumps out on tourist maps, but it has a fantastic quality of life, beautiful medieval old town, walkable, all in different neighborhoods. It has a beautiful bus system. You can get around on foot, and you could do all of your daily needs easily walking in Leiria. Another district to imagine that would have a great walkable lifestyle is Stubble. Stubble's another city that has all of the things you need, and it has a train that connects back to Lisbon in about 45 minutes. Let's see. Are there any issues with getting social security checks? No, actually, it's very straightforward. You fill out a form for the deposit with a foreign account. You fill out paperwork verifying that it is you, and then the social security checks are deposited directly into your Portuguese bank account. So that is a very straightforward process, and it's easy to set up and navigate once you get here. So that's very straightforward. So any hints to get an appointment? Oh my goodness, Leslie. Boy, I wish I actually had something that I could do to fix this process, because that would be amazing for everybody. A couple of things that we're able to advise that is helpful depending on the consulate. Now, you may be aware that there are different providers that help with the appointments depending on your geographical region. VFS Global handles some consulates. So for example, San Francisco, Washington, DC, and Houston. But for example, eVisa handles Newark. So depending on where you are geographically, you will have different things to help you. So I'm going to respond to the VFS Global tips first. This is something you need to know, because consulates going through eVisa have a different process. But for VFS Global, you want to try to get that appointment. You want to start scheduling, trying to check the calendar in the early AM or in the middle of the night. And the reason I say that is appointments dump back in after midnight. And then usually by the time 10 a.m. rolls around, or even 8 a.m., all those appointments have been scooped up. So for people that we've had that have been successful, they have set their appointment schedule, they've set an alarm, and they've gone on and checked daily, like at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and they've been able to snag appointments because the system has an automatic process of putting in canceled and changed appointments at that time. So if you're either a night owl or an early bird, that will serve you well. But you can expect, if you're checking after 10 a.m., that most of those appointments have already gone. And especially on the West Coast, imagine San Francisco serves everything west of the Mississippi. And that's an enormous amount of population that is all trying to filter into those appointments. And those folks that are on mountain time and earlier, they're picking things up earlier. So you really need to get in as early as possible to try to find that. Another thing you need to be aware is that if you're doing VFS Global, you are going to get the appointments, and then you're going to put all your paperwork towards that appointment. So walk-ins are sometimes possible in Washington, DC. So that is the one consulate that our clients have had some success with walk-ins. So I wouldn't advise buying plane tickets and trying to go at a walk-in in Washington, D.C. It's very costly if it doesn't work, and sometimes it doesn't work. But if you're within driving distance of Washington, D.C., there are opportunities to do a walk-in and try to see if you can just come in and get an appointment that way. For anyone that's using eVisa, that's like a Newark consulate, for example, you have to have all of your paperwork together, including your lease or your accommodation proof, before you can make an appointment. So that's a very different process and a very different timeline. Yeah, absolutely. I'm here on the D7, so you can work, you can have your own business. There's no restrictions to working. It's just for the consideration of the visa, you have to have passive income. Let's see, concerned about the new tax program and potential of a 48% tax rate. Do you have a tax lawyer you work with that helps individuals navigate the system to try and qualify for the reduced tax rate? So Emily, that's a two-part question. Yes, we have fantastic tax professionals we can connect you with that will help explain to you how it is not it's not as simple as just a 48% tax rate. There is a tax treaty between the United States and Portugal, and it's also a progressive rate. So not all your income is taxed at the same level. There are ways to offset with deductions and filings the impact of your taxes, and to help you understand how those need to be filed. That's definitely a tax professional. As far as qualifying for the NHR 2.0, because the first NHR is over, it's gone, it's done. There is no more qualifying for that. The NHR 2.0, which is basically specialized professionals and digital nomad with highly skilled professional visa, tax rate is still being figured out. So right now, it's not possible to really get in and get that verified. But that doesn't mean that when you're looking at your taxes, you can't just look at it and say, oh, I'm going to pay 48%, because there's a variety of filings that creates a tax structure that offsets your tax implication. And the other thing to realize is, of course, the taxes here cover things that are substantially expensive in the United States, such as healthcare, prescription coverage. There's a reduction, almost zero property tax here. It's nominal at best. So you have to really look at your overall budget and see where the savings are so that you understand your income structure when you move here. All right. And so if you get citizenship through naturalization after 5 years, does it include my young children, or do they have to wait until they're 18 to apply for their citizenship? Once you have your citizenship, then you can apply for them to get their citizenship through the fact that you have yours. So it is a process that works. The only downside is if they're close to teenage years, like if they're 16, 17, 18 in that age, it may end up being equally fast for them if they've completed the 5 years just to go for citizenship on their own. So it just depends. But if they're young children and you have your 5 years completed, then they will be able to become citizens based off the fact that their parents are citizens. All right. And is there a list that shows what the first steps are? It looks like maybe getting the NEEF, then bank account, etc., but a list of what and when would be helpful. Absolutely. We have, for our clients, we have a full list and steps, and we go through the checklist for the visa for sure, but you're absolutely correct, Marla. You will definitely need a NEEF before you can do anything. That's your tax identification number here. It's not like Social Security number. It doesn't have any financial information attached to it. So you give it out here everywhere. If you're in the grocery store, if you're going to the clinic, whatever, that's the number that you provide, and there's no risk of personal information being shared. It's a totally different thing than Social Security numbers. And for Americans, sometimes it's a little like unnerving for people to just take your number, but it's a very secure way of identifying yourself. So the NEEF is the very first thing. And then the bank account is an important step to getting towards the visa. You will not only need to open a bank account, and for example, our services, we include opening a bank account as part of our package, but there's only one bank right now that is really consistently opening for folks virtually. And with that, with Novo Banco, for example, Novo Banco needs to have, for a single person, you open the bank account. It's very simple. You can do it with like 300 euros. But when you get to the visa part, you will need to fund that bank account based on the income requirements for the visa that you're applying for. And the banking relationship that you have will be supported by your NEEF, which will have a fiscal representative that has agreed to be your financial representative until you've moved to Portugal. So that's really what you're paying for, not for the process of opening the NEEF. You're paying for a person to take your liability, your risk. If for some reason you opened a bank account and somehow committed fraud, that fiscal representative would be responsible for you. So you would have your bank account and your NEEF, and then after a series of steps of paperwork and proof of income and all of that, you have other steps such as the FBI check, which has to be done 30 days before your appointment, no earlier. And then you also will have your proof of accommodation, which is usually the piece that everyone's really trying to coordinate. So they don't pay for rent too early, but you have to have it ready for that appointment, or you can buy a home and use your contract for that purpose. So if an elderly parent accompanies me legally blind, do they need to do their application separately, or they can somehow be part of mine? I'm so glad you asked that question, because we moved my elderly father with us when we relocated, and he was part of our application. He was actually, we were able to show that he was a dependent as he lived with us, and we had proof of the fact that we were his caregiver, and that allowed him to come under our application. So yes, if you can show supporting documentation, a doctor's letter will be sufficient. If they already live with you at the same address, those kind of pieces of paperwork, you can have them apply as a dependent. Okay, so Reggie's asking, can I get dual citizenship in Portugal so I can spend 6 months in the US and in Portugal? Well, after 5 years of one of the D visas, like the D7 or the D8, you can apply for Portuguese citizenship. And then if you get Portuguese citizenship, you will be a dual passport holder. And at that point, you could live anywhere you wanted for any length of time, either the US or in Portugal. So if you still maintain your US passport, and then you would have a Portuguese passport, which allows you to live in any of the countries within the Schengen region. So that would give you 26 countries that you could actually reside in. In the 5-year period, when you are on a residency and not a citizen, then you do have restrictions and you will not be able to live 6 months in one and 6 months in the other. That's part of the commitment to becoming a resident to show that you're ready for citizenship. And Emily's asking, how many months or weeks in advance do you recommend people start the process, initial call with you from when they want to arrive? That's a tricky one because we have people that are in various different places, but in general, if you are planning to rent and you're looking at either the D7 or the D8 visas, the most common visas, we suggest you start working with us about 6 months before you plan to live in Portugal. And for that, what I do with this number, and the reason I use this number is we know there's a 3-month waiting period to get your visa approved from the time you visit the consulate. So imagine we need to account for that 90 days of waiting. So then we work 3 months back before your appointment to make sure you're prepared, that we have the plan of your location. We've assisted you with the bank account. We have all those steps in place. And then we work on the accommodation piece about 6 weeks before your appointment if it's a rental, and about 2 to 3 months before your appointment if it's a purchase. And Bethania, what does your service cost, and how do I start the process? So what we're looking at for our services is it depends on what you're looking to do. So we have 3 core services. We have location immersion, which is where for people that have never been to Portugal before and they want to have, or maybe you've been on vacation, and you want to really deep dive into an area you could live. And oftentimes it's people that are comparing 2 or 3 different areas. And this is hosted location immersion. You learn about the culture, how to grocery shop, how the pharmacies work, what the locations have compared to each other. And you get a general introduction to the real estate costs in one to the other. And that is one service package. We do 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, depends on what you need. Then we also have relocation packages for rentals and or for purchase. And that's when we're actually physically looking for your property. You've already decided you want to live in Portugal. You've been here, you're ready to go. Then we handle those from the very inception of finding the property for you and then working all the way through to your arrival date with all the support in between. Each one of these things depends on a variety of elements, where you're looking in Portugal, what you're looking to do, and what your current visa status and needs are. So how, the different times. So the way you work with us is first, it's an initial free consultation phone call, absolutely no cost, to determine what it is that you need and what it is that type of support you need to get a quote for. Then we are able to provide you a quote for services based on your specific need. But I can tell you that if you were doing a virtual rental in Portugal and you were looking in Lisbon, for example, a virtual rental package is 2,500 euros, and that will take care of everything from sorting, filtering, and finding the properties, visiting them, viewing them, getting your bank account, doing all of the support that we discussed, getting your utilities connected, internet, helping you with deliveries, getting it set up for furnished or unfurnished, taking you through the whole process of all the insurances and everything that you need, and then coordinating your arrival and helping you have a soft landing when you get here. So that's one example of the most commonly requested package, is the full support for relocation in the Lisbon area. And Carol's asking about the D7 health insurance requirements. Yes. So imagine on the insurance, the reason that they're requiring this is twofold. One, you need a gap insurance, an insurance that covers you from the time you leave the United States until you get your residency, because in this period of time, you do not qualify you can't be on the national health system because you're not a resident yet. So they want to make sure that you have a form of insurance that covers you in this period of time, in the in-between. And so you can get that from a variety of sources. We have a great broker that we can share with our clients and help them get set up. But basically, this is an insurance that has a letter that states that you are covered for this period of time, that it has a COVID rider, which is now required. And it also shows that if in the case of an untimely death, that you have coverage that would return your remains back to your home country. And that's what they want to make sure, is that everything's covered in this kind of gap period, the 6 months that we recommend that you get that and what they request with the visa. Then the private health insurance requirement, once you get your residency, you need to carry private health insurance. And that's because you will not have paid in to the national health system. So you'll have all the advantages of the national health system. You can go, you can use it, the prescription costs, everything. But they are asking that you have private health insurance so that you can navigate through the private system as well, to make sure it doesn't burden their health system too much. Sherry is asking, do we need U.S. documents apostilled? How do we know which documents needed? Is one of each document sufficient, or do we need to have multiple copies of the same document apostilled? For a couple or a family, the one document that is needing to be apostilled is sufficient. You don't need multiple copies. So for example, the one thing we know for sure is required right now is the FBI report is required to be apostilled. Now, in this case, each person applying has to have each adult, I should say, applying has to have an FBI report. So you need one copy of each person's report apostilled to include for your packet. Children, it doesn't apply. Then they are requesting, in some cases, some of the consulates are requesting this, some are not. So this is why it gets confusing. They're asking for apostilled marriage certificate. If that's the case, you just need one for the couple. So when you are putting this application through, there's a lot of variables, and that's why it gets confusing when you go look online or different sources. So it really applies depending on which one. But the rest of your documents, bank accounts, all the different social security statements, anything like that, they don't need to be apostilled. The FBI report right now is the one that everybody is asking to have apostilled. Amber's asking, with your virtual service, what's the average amount of places people see before a family signs a rental lease? Oh, I wish there was an average, Amber. Sometimes we knock it out of the park and everyone's happy with the first one that they saw, and we might have seen 3, 4. Sometimes we've had to do substantially more than that. That's why our package is a flat fee. We don't price it per property, per hour, per anything, because we get the job done. We continue to search and look for the property that's the best fit, and we don't have that minimum or maximum. The other reason that's really important is sometimes you'll go through the process, start the lease, everything's looking good, and then for some reason the landlord changes their mind, doesn't want to lease it anymore, or something comes up and doesn't make the property available. We don't charge again to go back and find the second property that we need to find. We just dig in and we start over again. Stuff happens. This is a process of moving and changing your lives from one country to another. And so we like to be prepared for all the what ifs. And sometimes we have to go, okay, well, that wasn't meant to be. This property is no longer on the market. We have to back out and start all over again. And that's why we're able to do it so nimbly and so quickly. And Emily's asking, last question, met with Clyde on Monday. How soon can I expect to get more information, coordinated next steps? So I'm guessing you gave him the green light to go. So if you've requested to go and I'm given the green light that you want to use our services, then probably by tomorrow you should see everything up and running. It takes a couple of days for us to get that out. So if you've received the retainer, and you've already paid the retainer, then you'll get a flurry of activity. That's kind of the green light that tells us you're up and running. And then we set up your WhatsApp group. We help you get connected with all the first steps. We start getting your calls on the calendar with whoever it is providing which service you've chosen. And then from there, everything just keeps going from that point. So yes. Okay. So you should be seeing it very, very soon. So Fiona's over here nodding her head. So she's like, yep, you're on point for getting everything out probably by tomorrow at this point, because it's after office hours here already. How do I get a consultation appointment set up? Is your phone number online? So you can go to our website and there is a schedule a booking on the schedule a call button right on our website. And that goes right to our calendar and you can schedule it right there. So that's the fastest way. Our website is www.portugaltheplace.com. And you can go right on there, click schedule your consultation, and we'll start chatting with you as soon as we have an available slot. And Reggie's asking, can I get married to my Portuguese fiance in Portugal? What is the process to do that? Yes, that sounds wonderful. You can get married in Portugal. Now, there's a couple of different ways you have to consider this. There's a civil union, which would be through the courts and going in as a civil service. And then there's a religious service, which is a totally different thing. And it depends on the faith that you subscribe to and if you are able to get married in that state. But let's just talk about the civil process. If you want to get married in a civil service, you would go through filings and paperwork. You would register in Portugal. You would declare how you were married. And this is one of my favorite questions that we get, because if you buy a house here, one of the first questions you're going to get asked by the attorney, and it's very funny, I love the responses. You'll get a question back that says, how are you married? And people get really funny about it. I've learned all kinds of things. People tell me they got married on a beach in Hawaii. They eloped. Why is that a problem? Like they're very like, what's this mean? It's not how you got married, like the ceremony. In Portugal, there's no states, right? There's no individual states. The law is the same across the whole country. So they have three statuses of marriage. You are married sharing everything, which is what most Americans qualify for, or you're married sharing only what you brought to the marriage. So whatever you had before you got married, you're sharing that, nothing else. Excuse me, I said that the wrong way around. You're married sharing only what you earn in the future, not what you had before you got married, or you're married sharing nothing. So they're going to ask you when you go to register at the civil service to declare how you are married. And that's what they're looking for. Married sharing everything, married sharing only what you earn together, or married sharing nothing. And that is the question that trips up a lot of Americans, because they're like, I don't know, I got married, I eloped to Vegas. Is that okay? Not what they're asking. Oh, thank you, Terrence. Thank you. I agree, but I guess I'm biased being he's my husband, but I'm glad you had a great call. And Aaron says, tell Clyde, Aaron with the tattoos is ready to green light and buy y'all a coffee, tea, whatever you prefer. Okay, that sounds great. We'll tell him. He's actually on a call right now in the office over this way. So I can hear him on a call with people at the moment. It's been pretty busy. So we've definitely had a lot of calls happening, and thank you all for your patience with the calendar. It's been pretty intense, but we're excited to be able to be here to answer your questions. Stacy, do you have tips for how to maintain U.S. work hours remotely? 6 hours time difference. How does this translate to the average person's day-to-day life? We actually have a lot of people, including ourselves, that are managing the time change and working through this. And it does take a little bit of an adjustment. But for my clients that have moved here, that have businesses, maybe they're like therapists, for example, and they have their clients primarily on the West Coast. What they've done is they've gotten into a set schedule where they have their mornings. They spend their mornings here, really maintaining what they moved to Portugal for, a chance to support themselves through whatever activity is they love. They have that kind of quiet quality of life in the morning. And then they do have their schedule through like the early evening or even later evening for the West Coast folks. I know that they'll start working like from 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock till about 10 o'clock at night. And it's quite manageable. People really appreciate the fact that they can have this full day with their families or going out and exploring during the day and then picking up that time change. With folks that have these remote positions, I've also had a lot of people where I've seen where they're working, at cafes, they're going out to co-working spaces and still getting out and connecting with people even when they're on work hours, and they're able to make that work-life balance. So it really does seem quite manageable for us. The one thing I know is I now think in like 5 time zones. I'm always like, okay, so let's see, I'm doing this, but these people are going to start coming online at this time. So you do start adjusting and really thinking about what time it is in other places all the time. And Jay is saying, if I just wanted the relocation service that would help support with housing, schools, et cetera, the visa support, is that possible? And what is the cost? Well, that's our relocation package, like the one I was discussing, the one for Lisbon that I was sharing. The 2,500 euro is a virtual relocation package. It handles all of those things. So it handles the support with the housing, the schools, the visa support, insurances, buying a car, helping with the pets, getting you settled when you arrive, delivery reception. So if you need to send things before if you want to buy things for your property before you're here and make sure it's all set up. We grocery shop for folks before they arrive and make sure their fridge is stocked and they have toilet paper and garbage bags. Really, everything we need to do to help you prepare for your arrival is all part of that package. So the only variable on that beyond that is the area you want it to start with, because it's 2,500 euros plus the expenses for us to go where it is. And so, for example, the Algarve will be slightly more expensive than Lisbon because it's farther away for a lot of people to go, transfers, things like that. So 2,500 euros is the base package. But again, if you were in Lisbon, it'd be an additional 125 in expenses. It just depends geographically on what the expenses entail. And Emily is asking, I have another question. Worried about finding daycare openings for our son. How hard is it to find a good nanny, and any ideas what the average cost is for one child? Well, that's a great question. There are a variety of childcare centers, daycare, nursery school. It's really cute. We have one of our Francisco, who's on our team, he has a 2-year-old, and he always says he's taking him to school, which I think is really cute because they call it school even when they're really little. But we also know that there are great nanny services here. We have one on our team that we partner with that actually provides nanny services because it's constantly requested, and has partners with a nanny group that vets and clears nannies here in Portugal. An average cost for one child, if it's full time, is going to run around 900 a month if it's a 40-hour work week that you're trying to cover. So that's about average for the month if you're doing full time. But if it's a flex schedule or part, it could be half that easily. 2,500 per person? No, for the family, for the clients. So 2,500 is if it's one person or if it's a family of 4, we don't change the pricing on that. We would call your family our client, our guest. And so it's 2,500 per family. So I think, Jay, I saw your question come by really quickly. So yes, all 5 of you, it's 2,500. Yes. And Carol's asking, if you want to move in early October, when do I need to start the process? Pretty soon. Yes, definitely pretty soon, because October is going to be here before you know it. So again, working 6 months backwards from that date is why you'd want to start really getting your plans together, making sure you know where you are, knowing which consulate you need to go to, and like you're doing now, doing the discovery so that you're really prepared when you're ready to jump into the process. Our call isn't until April. Any place specific we can go to get a list of what to do before that call? Yes, we can actually, let's see, Kristen, if you can send us an email, we'll go ahead and pre-send you that list so that you have that and you're ready for that before your call in April. And also we have another person that's come on board to help us with the initial calls. So if you'd like, we can boost your information and see if we can find an earlier opening for you, because we have had so many call requests. So if that would be helpful, Kristen, Fiona's going to take your info and then we can see if we can get you an earlier opening. And Dave's asking if I'm able to assist someone from Colombia move to Portugal. Oh, no, absolutely. We have people from all over the world. We're happy to help. So the visa requirements, you have to apply from your home country, and they do vary slightly from place to place, but nothing significant. And we are absolutely, it'd be our pleasure to assist you. And Maria is asking, with the political climate in the US, it appears that interest in moving to Portugal is increasing. Are you seeing increased interest, and do you anticipate this might impact housing availability? Yes, yes, and yes. That's a great question. I actually have a sheet here with people that sent in questions before, and this is one that has come up multiple times. We are seeing a significant increase in people interested in moving, and the stories and the fear and the concerns and the anxiety levels for all of us on the team, it's just really, really difficult. And we just want to try to help everyone if we can. And we know this is really challenging right now. As far as interest that will impact housing availability, I believe that's going to be a natural occurrence. We're already seeing inventory in certain places getting tighter, but there's still inventory to be had. If it continues at this pace of things that are causing people so much anxiety and challenge, I can see this continuing to be an impact. And then to build off of this, I've had people asking about the IMA backlog. That's the consulates here in Portugal. That's your actual appointment where you get your residency card. And of course, I believe that that's going to continue to be an impact as well, because Portugal is a small country and they've just had a huge increase in interest and they're struggling to keep up with the demand. So are people getting processed in their visas? Absolutely. Are they getting their residence cards? Absolutely. We're seeing it every day. We're not seeing a slowdown on the D7s and the D8s, but there's no way for me to say anything other than the reality check is if we continue to get more and more increase of people trying to move to Portugal, it's going to slow some of the systems down. And Mike is saying he's a Canadian in Japan. What police credit reports do I need? Japan or my home country? You're going to need both. You're going to need both if you're a resident in Japan. Now, if you haven't established residency in Japan, you will not. But if you've established residency by an address, by utility bill, if you've done anything to establish residency in Japan, you will need to provide both. And Sherry would prefer to purchase a home in the countryside, no big cities. What region or town do you recommend? Sherry, I would love to jump on a call with you and just share so many wonderful areas. I love Portugal's countrysides. There are so many beautiful kind of tucked away places that have such potential for a peaceful way of life. I just came back this morning from Ponte de Barcos, which is north by Ponte de Lima, and saw some of the most beautiful countryside, some of the most stunning vistas, and also cows and goats on the same road at the same time, almost. So it's very, very rural, very peaceful, absolutely beautiful. Where we live on the Silver Coast still has some great opportunities for finding a reasonably priced home in some of the most idyllic rural settings that you'll see with vineyards and orchards. It's the fruit basket of Portugal. It's lovely. And out on the Setúbal Peninsula, there's still some fantastic opportunities with some really charming smaller towns that give you access to the national park and some of the most beautiful areas that you'll see as far as wine region and the beaches. So Alentejo is an inland area. Santarém and Alentejo, these are more inland. They're going to have some of your best prices, but it's a very extreme climate. It can be very, very hot in the summer, and it has a tendency to be more conservative, and the rural areas are very remote as far as being disconnected from some of the amenities that a lot of folks are looking for. It's still beautiful. It's just not necessarily the first option that people coming from the States are looking at. And Mike is asking if we recommend a mortgage broker for buying a home. So the mortgages right now are incredibly appealing to Americans. The interest rate's below 3%. They're very, very interested in loaning to foreigners because foreigners have a tendency to have a higher income threshold. A couple things you need to know about a mortgage is that they are age rated. So they're rated from the age of the person to 76 years old. So you don't get offered like a 30-year fixed or something like that. They're going to look at your age and then offer to 76 years old. The other thing to note here is that with a mortgage, you're going to see more variable rate mortgages than you will see fixed rate. It's just more common to get offers from the banks on a variable. You can still get fixed rate, but that's something that you want to consider. And they're going to give you loans as a foreigner of either 20% down or 30% down. They are not going to do a 10% mortgage for foreigners. They reserve those for Portuguese citizens, and they will loan on the evaluated amount. So in Portugal, the sale price may be, say, 300,000. The house could evaluate at 280,000, and so they would loan up to 80 or 70% of the 280,000, and you would be responsible for the difference. It's not renegotiable. You already are in a contract with the seller, and that's the expectation, that the banks are conservative and they may evaluate slightly lower. Not all the time, but it's a reality. And when we help, and when I help someone navigate the process, we keep that in mind if you're using a mortgage, and work really hard to make sure that the property we're looking at is going to fit those criteria. So, I recommend you absolutely work with a broker because they're going to get you comparable mortgage rates between the different banks that are offering really fantastic mortgages at the moment. Is it, David's asking if it's possible to rent a furnished house for a year, then buy a house, an apartment. Absolutely. We do that all the time. But we have a bundled package where people come over, we help them find the rental, and then I help people find the purchase. I'm not a real estate agent. My job is to guide you through the entire purchase process. I purposely don't work on commission because I want to make sure that my guests, the people that I'm helping, are getting the same experience, whether you have 100,000 or a million. For me, it's about making sure your investment is protected as possible, that you understand navigate a real estate market that is very different than the United States. And my job is to look out for those red flags that you're not necessarily going to recognize, and get you to all the professionals that are going to be able to help you, from real estate attorneys to making sure you're represented properly, mortgage brokers, currency exchange, all the things you need to know to do it in a way that protects your investment and gets you set up for success. Now, the one caveat I can tell you, David, is last year, I would have said absolutely rent, spend a year, spend two, and then buy. With the inventory and the prices of homes continually going up in value, if you have a set budget that you're thinking you'll spend in a year, you might want to think about when you want to purchase, because the prices are adjusting and that budget may not go as far in a year from now. And Terrence is asking if are you finding that it's easier to find a rental or a property to purchase? There's more properties to purchase inventory. The rentals that Americans are going for are all looking for kind of the same things. Most people contact us and they say they want a T3, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They want at least about 1,500 square feet, maybe 1,100 to 1,500 square feet. They don't want anything old. They want to make sure it's energy efficient. They want an elevator. They want an outside space, and they want parking. That is literally the description that we probably get 85% of the time for people that are looking for a rental. And that's not the most common type of property here. Most places are smaller, a lot of places are older, so it's definitely in demand. When you're in the purchase market, you have more flexibility because there's just more things coming on the market all the time. So, and if you have pets, if you're traveling and looking to move with especially large animals, a lot of people start opting for purchase just because they find more variety to choose from than where you kind of have to settle for what's available with the rentals. And Amber's asking, are there yards in non-rural areas for dogs? Sometimes. Absolutely. Like you'll find row houses, you'll find places that will have large, like walled-in terraces in the back. Absolutely. It's just the more dense it gets, the less and less possible it'll be. So like if you wanted to live in the middle of Lisbon or Porto, I wouldn't encourage you to think that's going to be an option unless you have a very, very significant budget. But for other areas, we can usually find some outdoor space, even in more of the dense urban areas. All right. So Erin, I have seen that too. Sorry. Maria, I've seen conflicting information online regarding the lease terms when applying for a visa. Is it 6 months or a year that is required? It's interesting that you asked that because it's VFS that's causing this confusion. Every application that we're seeing going through, they're requiring a 1-year lease. The problem is on the VFS site, they haven't updated their site since 2022 when they allowed 6-month visas or 6-month leases. So you're absolutely correct. It's very confusing. I have not had a single person that has come to us that has been able to apply successfully with a 6-month lease. We've had people come to us after they've been declined because they thought they had it all set with a 6-month lease, and then they needed us real quickly to help them find a year lease because they didn't have the proper paperwork and they got initially declined on their visa and they had to go through the whole thing again. So, is there a hard and fast rule that says on the website that it must be a year? Absolutely not. It still says 6 months. It also doesn't say that you need your FBI report apostille. That still says you can bring the sealed envelope. The problem is they change what the people will accept, but they don't update the websites. So our experience working with hundreds and hundreds of people is you need a 1-year lease, and that it's also a really good idea to have a 1-year lease. And here's another reason not to do with the visa. Everything about your life in Portugal will attach to that address. So the IMA appointments are taking 4 to 6 months to get into those IMA appointments. That's the next appointment after your visa appointment in the States. So imagine you have a 6-month lease, but you went to your appointment and it took 90 days to get your approval. So now you only have 3 months of a place to live when you get to Portugal, but your IMA appointment is 4 months away. And now, unless you extend that property, your mail is going to go to the wrong address. Your health number will go to the wrong address. It's very difficult here to get all that changed before you've had your residency appointment. So it's a real struggle if you don't have access to that mailbox. They don't do a great job of forwarding mail here. It is just a reality. CTT here is less than reliable on things like that. So if you are moving here and you don't have the time at the address and you're getting your residency card mailed to you, you're getting your doctor assigned based on your address, all of the paperwork from the finance department, shipping your goods require an address before they can ship them from the States. You have to have a bill of lading. You are going to have all kinds of headaches trying to navigate not having proper paperwork and your lease being expired, because they won't accept going month to month. You have to show that you have a long-term lease for a lot of these different steps. So that beyond the visa requirements, it's really advisable to have at least a year under your belt. All right. That was a lot. I feel like I'm firing information. So Mike was referred to us by a couple from Alaska who said you were great to work with. That's wonderful, Mike. Thank you. All right. So I think we have just run through a substantial amount of information. I know that some of the people had some questions that they sent in. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I call these out. One of the questions were furnished or unfurnished rentals more prevalent. And that is unfurnished are definitely more available than furnished. And something to think about, some of the furnished places are kind of grandma's furniture that you're not quite sure how many people have slept in that bed. So getting an unfurnished property, especially if you work with us, we can handle deliveries. You can order things online and have it shipped, and we can have it set up at the house. So you don't have to worry about necessarily finding a fully furnished place. There's ways to navigate that. And then we had a question about, with our services, how we determine what makes a landlord good or bad. It's through experience. We start to see red flags if people start to behave a certain way, not respond, start to give us answers that we know are absolutely not correct. For example, whether you work with us or not, do not give a year's worth of lease upfront. That is unreasonable and unexpected. That is a huge red flag. Another thing, whether you work with us or not, never, ever send money before signed contracts are in place. Please, nobody is going to hold an apartment for you, and you're not going to have any legal right if you don't have a signed legal agreement. Only transfer money after everything has been reviewed by an attorney and paperwork has been signed. Also, I had a question here about where they're coming to Portugal with just their clothing. Do you recommend renting a furnished place for our first rental? Probably. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Let's get some furniture in place. If it is totally unfurnished, we can help you. But if you're really literally just coming with the clothes on your back, probably a good idea to find something that's furnished. And then I think for the rest of the questions, we were able to answer them with all of your fantastic questions that were sent in. And again, I just want to thank you so much for joining us. Farrell is asking if the relocation service and the rental package is the same thing. Yes, we have relocation package for rentals and a relocation package for purchase. Yes. So again, thank you so much. We really understand and appreciate how challenging it is to start this process. My husband and I went through it. We moved my father, our daughter, our huge dog. We relocated, we sold everything in the States, drove across the country in an RV, and then ended up in Portugal. So we are right here with you, and we really encourage you to schedule a call so we can just chat with you and answer your specific questions. But best of luck to all of you, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.